Hey there, internets. Welcome to the Saturday Night Rant from my grandfather's desk. I am Pat. So, I was torn on what to talk about today. Told somebody I was paying attention to me on the route that I caught between two things and thought both sounded interesting. Polled some friends and everyone leaned one way, but then I got to looking at what the legislative updates were, and I want to go a different direction because of it. Because as it stands now, there's some bills regarding rent control that were seen this week, and they hit the original bill, the companion bill, and a slightly different bill all together this week. And that needs a separate subject from the other thing, because the other thing, I'm going that direction because of time. On one hand, they're obviously pushing rent control hard because they hit the House bill and its Senate companion. On the flip side, the other one is already scheduled for an executive session, and that makes it more concerning because they're moving it through into the next stage of getting it through at least one house more quickly. And so that bill is HB1333. That it is entitled Establish the Domestic Violence Extremism Commission. And there's some issues with it, but it has a broader thing, and it contains one very minor part of the act. It's all of a 3-page bill. I will put the link in the description below once everything uploads from my phone and I can get back on and do this. But I will link directly to the bill site. It's already through. Its first reading was January 16th. On Tuesday the 24th, they had their first public hearing, and then scheduled for this next week is scheduled for the executive session in the House Committee on State Government and Tribal Relations at 1:30. So you can't get your normal comments in, but you could potentially email individual state reps. There is not a companion bill to this, though, that I can see, because they usually tell you if there's a companion bill on the state website. So it starts off it's pretty much all one section being added, so the whole thing is new legislation. So that it's not striking anything, amending anything, other than inserting this other legislation into a part of the law, which is RCW Chapter 43.1. And it reads as follows: the Domestic Violent Extremism Commission is established within the Office of the Attorney General for the purpose of establishing a comprehensive public health and community-based framework for responding to domestic violent extremism. It is the intent of this section to build upon the research and findings of this domestic terrorism study assembled by the State Attorney General in 2022. And of course, do remember, from what I understand of the testimony, I have not had the chance to watch any video testimony that was placed. It was all, look at all these groups on the right that are extremists and ignore what happened during the Summer of Love. So Antifa isn't considered a domestic violence extremism to the people pushing for this. Those are peaceful protesters. So keep that in mind. So where Atlanta's on a 15-day lockdown, trying to get the park protesters, as they call them, under control, which, a cop got shot, and that's what caused the cops to come in. There's outside groups stirring up and fighting with cops and burning small houses down and all the other things. Or small houses being under construction, being burned down, happened last summer. Those aren't considered extremism, but you'll understand why I say this is going after political opponents of people like the Attorney General and the people pushing this kind of stuff. The commission must consist of the following members. It says 4 legislators, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. That's not how they write it. It's just they say the two largest caucuses in each chamber. somebody from the governor's office appointed by the governor, somebody from the Attorney General's office, a representative of the American Civil Liberties Union. Okay, so this is specifically a group that will have a political bias. And 99% of the time, the American Civil Liberties Union only agrees with the left. A representative of the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. ADL this week declared Matt Walsh a big-time transphobe for opposing saying we should not have laws that prevent giving cross-sex hormones to minors, doing sex changes on minors, doing gender-affirming cosmetic double mastectomies on 15-year-old girls. And when we get into this, you're going to understand that Matt Walsh, Libs of TikTok, other groups, they went and found videos on some of these hospitals doing this on their website and said, here's them talking about it. And then they denied it, and everyone's saying that Matt Walsh is lying. Despite the fact that because they put those videos out there, they were replayed on Matt Walsh's channel. It's out there. It's there forever, guys. I upload this video, somebody's going to save it someday. Even if I tried to take it down within a few days, it could end up being on something like a Wayback site or something like that. A representative with expertise in public health, how that really applies to public health and violent extremism are not the same things. And then say 6 representatives from organizations representing groups protected under RCW, which includes but not limited to one of the following. Someone from the Black African American community, from the Muslim community, from the Jewish community, a representative from the Asian or Asian American community, from the Sikh community, the Latino community, the LGBTQ community, and a representative from the immigrant refugee community, and a representative of the African community. So apparently, instead of just saying Black African American African, they're going to have that separate from African. Why? I'm not certain. And then the commission must extend an invitation to participate in the commission to the following. A representative from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the same weaponized part of the Justice Department who is investigating parents at school boards complaining about materials, what's being taught to their kids. So it has to include somebody from that weaponized group or from that weaponized department, a representative from the United States Department of Homeland Security, which again has been somewhat weaponized, a representative from a federally recognized tribe, and then the commission is encouraged to solicit participation and feedback from non-member groups and individuals with relevant experience as needed. So obviously they're not going to extend an invitation to, say, the Alliance Defending Freedom, because extremism aimed at religious conservatives does not apply here. They don't have to. In theory, they could, but I highly doubt they're going to do that. And of course, they could add the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has become a joke. They can either add other left-wing groups if they want. They probably will not be adding anybody that stands up for anybody on the right, like Alliance Defending Freedom, any kind of a conservative identity group that's not white even. I highly doubt they're going to include that. You're not going to see a conservative black group or conservative Asian group on there, obviously, because to them, the only kind of extremism is on the right. You know, this reminds me very much of back in 2004 after Saturday morning class, Subak Do class, I helped somebody move a couple pieces of furniture real quick for them. And they said, "You don't support Bush, do you?" I said, "Well, yeah." He says, "He's an extremist." I was like, "No, he's not. He's fairly conservative." At the time, that, in 2004, Bush was. But John Kerry, who was running him, they'd run out and called him a moderate when he had the most left-wing record in Congress. He was to the left of Kucinich by his voting record in Congress, if not by what he was proposing. It gets into stuff about being reimbursed for travel expenses, or when you can be, and when they have to do their first meeting. And then it says it's staff. The Attorney General is supposed to provide staff. And then the duties of the commission include, but are not limited to, so remember, they can do mission creep here. Identified, community-led, and evidence-based solutions to combat disinformation and misinformation. So this essentially turns this into a commission of truth, or the ministry of truth. It's not, they call it about going after extremism, but now they can say, oh, Matt Walsh is lying. That's not true. That the hospital in Tennessee, Vanderbilt something or other, was doing cosmetic double mastectomies on teenage girls when they had it on their own website. You can say, oh, well, that's not true. You gotta remember, when you create a group like a commission like this, they can straight out say, this isn't true, even if you have hard evidence. You can be backing it up with video evidence of what's going on, and they can just say, that's not true, that's disinformation. And of course, they're going to want to find ways to get that disinformation taken down. Address early signs of radicalization, which to them is anything they don't agree with, and develop public health style responses, which effectively is going to be public shaming. Don't be an extremist. Don't stand up for traditional values. That's extremism. Evaluating future data tracking recommendations around domestic violent extremism, including how it's collected, what triggers data collection, and how to ensure data is not disproportionately used against Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities and other communities. It's going to be used to target religious conservatives, parents that want to go after to complain at their school board. Word of advice: get your kids out of the schools and problem solved. And then just vote no on every school bond. Evaluating current legal tools, both civil and criminal, and making recommendations for potential new legislation and regulations to address domestic violent extremism. Again, we're getting into free speech areas. If a person agrees with certain ideas, they want to make it illegal. This is trying to find a way to shut up your opposition instead of just answering the opposition straight away. It's like I was telling my wife this evening. The Soviet Union, one of the things they used to do was, if somebody got a little too much following, one way to shut them down without making it look like you're obviously shutting them down for speech is have them committed to a mental institution. Say, that guy's crazy. He was committed to a mental institution. Now no one can talk to him. And some people are going, well, how do we know what this person's about? He's in a mental institution for schizophrenia. Well, this same thing. You can just declare it misinformation or disinformation, whether it's true or not. I saw a meme on the meme policeman page on Facebook that they busted, Bernie Sanders saying, if we take this cap off, we'll solve all Social Security problems. And then the meme policeman showed where the Congressional Budget Office showed where it wouldn't solve all of Social Security's problems. But all it takes is somebody declaring Bernie to be true, and it doesn't matter what the CBO shows. Specific steps to adopt and fund a public health style community-based framework, improve standardized and add transparency to data collection and reporting on incidents of domestic violence extremism. To achieve an objectives in Section 7 of this section, the Attorney General must publish a review with the input and review of the Commission of legal options available under existing law and regulations to address domestic violent extremism and potential new legislation and regulations. The review must be guided by the recommendations of the Attorney General's 2022 Domestic Terrorism Study. The Commission, and again, remember, CHOP, that wasn't terrorism according to these people. The Summer of Love in 2020, that was not domestic terrorism to these guys. That was peaceful protest. I remember well, clear, even back during the Tea Party movement, how they tried to call people that came and protested in the Tea Party movement, tried to call them extremists and violent extremists, and of course the left will tell the right that their words are violence because they don't believe in any kind of definitions unless it suits their purposes. And then they must hold at least 4 meetings. The Attorney General must publish a report on the Commission's findings as set forth in Section 8 and 9 of this section, with the input of the review of the Commission to the governors and the legislature in compliance with no later than August 30, 2025. This section expires in 2025, September 1, 2025. So it does have an expiration date. But ultimately, it's going to be going after speech. It's going to be going after ideas they don't like and trying to find ways of silencing dissent. It's not because we have laws against the very acts that are violent extremism, real violence. We have murder laws, we have assault, we have riots, we have arson, all of the bombing stuff. Those are all of those are illegal already. They aren't going after people attacking last summer the pro-life pregnancy centers. I don't see the Attorney General doing anything about that. That could just as easily be called violent extremism as anything the right has done in this country. So it's effectively setting up the potential for a ministry of truth. It is setting up the potential for singling out groups they don't like just by declaring them to be extremist, even if they're not. 15 years ago, you were a mainstream conservative. Even a lot of people in the middle weren't for gay marriage. Now, if you're just simply believe in traditional marriage, you're an extremist, according to the left. Tony Dungy spoke at the pro-life rally in Washington, D.C. He didn't say anything extremist. He didn't call for violence. He didn't call for extreme levels of legislation, but he spoke took a pro-life stance. They were running around calling him an extremist. And yet, they won't call somebody extremist who wants to force a pro-life pregnancy center to tell someone where they can get an abortion. So that's what's going on here. The bill is HB 1333. Do let your legislators know that you oppose it. Do let if you have connection to somebody that's in the legislature, let them know it's opposed. And of course, as always, share this video with your friends. Put a like for me. Help fuel the algorithm, and throw a comment in. Let them know. Just say, "Hey, I commented on it," or "I think you're an idiot." If you think I'm wrong, say it. And please present your evidence. Because as always, I'd rather be truthful and right than ideologically correct. But in this case, if you question whether this bill is a good idea, take this exact bill, if you're on the left, and change out state of Washington for state of Florida. Change it out to state of Georgia. Change it out to state of Texas. And change out Anti-Defamation League to Alliance Defending Freedom. Ask yourself if this is still a good idea. If the person proposing this was Donald Trump, would it still be a good idea? If you're on the fence and you're on the right and you're kind of thinking, you're overblowing this. Think about how if you probably don't like Obama still, ask how this could be abused by the left. And that will tell you whether this is a good idea, because if the other side having this kind of power is unacceptable, you shouldn't have it too. Because I could totally see, if I was on the left, put this and make this say state of Florida. And what does Ron DeSantis do? Stacks all those minority groups up with conservative minorities. Stacks up everything else to represent conservatives. And they start calling every abortion group extremist. Antifa being raided. And Antifa actually does engage in acts of terror and violence. That's what they're doing in Georgia right now. And if they can find a way to ideologically swing it, they'll do it in Memphis too, because there's something going on. There's a police brutality case, and all the cops are black and the victim's black, so it doesn't fit the narrative. But it is police brutality. Again, something that is illegal, but just simply prosecuting it good enough for some people. They want an excuse to riot. They won't use this against left-wing rioters. It's only going to be used one way. But ultimately, that misinformation, disinformation thing is probably the biggest threat in here, because that allows you to control the narrative of what people are allowed to hear in terms of news and what people are allowed to hear and think. And if something's false and you simply say it's not disinformation, and use another example, when the Biden administration got caught trying to give away crack pipes, and Facebook called it false, and then all the everyone made fools of their fact checkers by posting links to what's in a safe smoking kit or safe injection kit, and there were syringes and crack pipes, or the parts for crack pipes. They made fools of the fact checkers, because they can totally make this subjective and use this just to silence your opposition, and that is the scariest part. Until then, you all take care, and we'll see you again. I will be doing a separate one on the rent control. Might even get it done over the weekend and post it Monday or Tuesday at the latest. They're also obviously moving, but they don't even have any of those scheduled for executive session. And I wanted to get this out because they could be moving fast on this and trying to slip it beneath the radar. You all take care.